Presenting for us today, we've got Carl Thompson from StorageCraft. It's going to cover off why having good backups in place and the ability to rapidly recover is important. And then we'll follow that with Brett Cullen from Malwarebytes talking about the attack chain and how we can defeat that attack chain. So I'll now pass over to Carl to get us underway.
So today we're going to talk about the problem and why business continuity planning is so critical. So again, my name is Carl Thompson. I'm a sales engineer for StorageCraft in New Zealand, and thanks to Soft Solutions for organising this today. So one of the key things I want you guys to consider is the statistical causes of downtime. So you've got your 20% there in orange of hardware, operating system, security power, natural disasters. And in fact, just 3% of this type of scenario is a natural disaster. So when you think of what you see in the evening news with earthquakes, fires, floods, that's a very small portion of what can actually go wrong. You've got their operational and application failures filling in the other 80%. So there's a really high chance of someone deleting something, malicious activity, an application or an update going wrong, or that there's ransomware type of attack. So the key thing to realize here is that you don't need a major disaster to require rapid system recovery. There's everyday occurrences can bring a system down, and we need to be able to rapidly recover machines back on site. So looking at this from another perspective here, this is some consolidated reports from Gartner, IDC, and Forrester. And although this is probably more over North America where this was surveyed, they're saying 85% of critical systems not backed up. So obviously, we're hoping that most of you guys out there are already backing up, but it's sort of indicating, that there's still a lot of critical systems out there that aren't protected. They're saying that 80% of loss is due to operational human errors, application failures. Again, the ransomware would definitely fit into this scenario. 20% of loss due to hardware, I covered that one off previously. So it's not that typical, DR means I need a DR site. It's DR's recovering on site more often than off site. Data growth is doubling every 2 years now versus every 4 years. So this is a big challenge. As data grows, it's harder to back this stuff up. Some products they'll take longer, and then you've got to store it and dedupe it, and there's all sorts of things that come into the equation. So that's a challenge. And then the bottom one's actually really interesting. So if we take a look at the top one again, 85% of systems not backed up. So that means 15% are. So out of that 15%, up to 40% of them, the backup restores fail. So that's pretty alarming. It indicates, it's a challenge, and we need to be proactive about this and automate the process of testing those backups to know we can recover. So some of the warnings that we're seeing out there, are pretty powerful messaging, particularly where some of these things are coming from. I think the key thing with this slide particularly is that it's not a question of if, but when. We're seeing these malicious ransomware type scenarios all over the show now, and it's just going to be a matter of time. We need to protect ourselves, and obviously Malwarebytes is going to have some pretty good messaging on preventative methods there that I'll leave them to discuss about. But the key thing is, you need to have that last line of defense. There's one here from Homeland Security last year. I mean, that's pretty powerful when they're issuing ransomware alerts. And then locally, we're seeing some things, in the Herald, Lockheed ransomware strikes, ransomware holds world hostages, Christchurch law firm, Tauranga Council. So this is local stuff. CIO, Lockheed ransomware activity ticks up. You can now buy cyber insurance to protect yourself from this type of problem. So, it's really relevant right now. The register, Zepto was a big one last year. Infections where they even tell you a wiki link to how good their encryption is, and their documentation on how to pay them is far superior to just about any other product on the market. Then obviously this weekend, cyber attack spreads worldwide. So these are everyday occurrences that can bring a system down that we need to protect ourselves from. There's a huge amount of threats around malware attacks, the number of businesses that don't survive a disaster, and the amount of data that's high value that's getting affected by this. And you can put a price on downtime. There's a cost to a business for every minute or every hour that they're down. How many users are there? what's the average salary going to be costing. You can put a price on what it costs the business. Then there's things like the customer lifetime value. For the time that you're down, who needed to call you to buy your product and you couldn't help them, so they went somewhere else. So there's that discussion you can have to figure out what the impact is, and changing that discussion from I can't afford to do this to say I can't afford not to. My business won't survive if I'm not protected. So the solution from StorageCraft is the most comprehensive and reliable backup and disaster recovery solution available. So what this entails is having a reliable backup, and this means consistent, regular backups throughout the day, centralized management to centrally monitor and manage this. We want to replicate a copy off site. We need to have copies so if worst case those backups actually got infected as well, we've got an isolated copy. And obviously this all pinnacles on having a solid recovery solution. So whether we're recovering on site or off site or in the cloud, having that functionality when you need it. And across physical, virtual, Windows and Linux with the cloud offering is really the key to a comprehensive solution. One of the other big things is obviously cloud adoption. What's huge right now in the market is bring your own devices, Office 365 or Google Suite, those kind of tools where people are leveraging things like OneDrive or SharePoint, and they're working from home. The risk is getting harder and harder to control in some respects. And so you need to think about the cloud as well, that just because you're in the cloud, you're not protected or less risk of these types of attacks. That hardware element of failure might be less risk. You've got high availability and geographical redundancy in the cloud. Your data is still at risk, so you need a solution that can protect that data. Some of the key things from StorageCraft that are available today is the StorageCraft solution, which we're going to take a look at. Cloud backup for your Office 365 and G Suite. We've got a file backup and recovery solution for those mobile workers on their laptops. And then we'll touch on the ExaBlock solution to give continued protection across your file systems. So a quick snapshot at some of these solutions coming together on one page here. You can see on the left there we've got physical servers, tablets, laptops, desktops, or virtual environments. This is where Shadow Protect traditionally sits in there, can back up frequently throughout the day. If you've got a BDR style environment, such as a small business, we can rapidly recover there. Or if it's a larger environment with Hyper-V and VMware type environments, we can virtualize our backups immediately back into those production environments. Then we want to look at securing those backups. We want to replicate a copy, and whether that be off-site to your partner, off-site to soft solutions, it could be into public clouds or to the StorageCraft cloud services. It's about getting a copy off-site so that you've got a final last defense in terms of off-site protection, potentially opportunities there for disaster recovery depending on where that's going, so that your business can fail over if need be. At the top there we've got the StorageCraft file backup and recovery with Backup Analyzer. This is a fantastic tool for the people that work off laptops. They're roaming around. That's when they're at risk. It could get stolen, they could drop it. It's protecting that data and backing up those critical files directly to the cloud so that they're always protected. And then finally on the right there, the StorageCraft Cloud Backups, the ability to back up your Office 365 and G Suite, including email, contact, calendar, OneDrive, Google Drive, SharePoint, Google Sites, back up frequently throughout the day so that if something goes wrong, you've got the ability to instantly search and perform granular recovery of that data. So these are some key things that StorageCraft can help you with. And I guess just finally to wrap up here, some key thoughts from StorageCraft is backing up frequently throughout the day. Long are the days where you can just back up once a night, and there's too much loss. If something happened right now at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I can't afford to lose the whole day's worth of data. If you've got 30 staff, 100 staff times however many hours, it's a huge amount of data loss. You need to protect your backups and replicate a copy off-site. Your backups are susceptible to getting infected just like anything else. So there's mechanisms in place to lock down your backups and secure them on your network, but also replicating a copy off-site and automate that process, get your stuff off-site. It can be easily monitored and away from that legacy mindset of someone manually taking a tape off-site. Thirdly, ensure you can recover quickly. So your RTO, this is one thing to say I'm backing up, but can you recover quickly? If it's going to take you hours or days to recover, then you don't have a good disaster recovery solution. So that's another really key thing that StorageCraft focuses on. And finally, test your backups regularly. If without testing, you don't know that you can recover. You might not know how long it takes. You might not know the process. And your team members might not be up to scratch. And StorageCraft have got tools, particularly in the Image Manager tool, to automatically verify. It's got advanced verification to boot up your backups and take screenshots to show you that it's working. So there's a lot of solutions like that StorageCraft have to ensure that you can recover your backups, and that's important. Even with our partners replicating off-site, they have a second Image Manager re-verifying and periodically testing to make sure that those backups haven't been damaged or corrupted or infected, or the image chain might be broken. So this is giving you a fantastic solution across the board. All right, well, that's Carl from StorageCraft. So Paul, I'll hand back over to you.
Thanks, Carl. Sorry for the delay there. I had to unmute myself. That's a good update there, and a reminder of the capabilities of StorageCraft for that full DR and business continuity environment. I'll now hand over to Brett to tell us all about the tech chain for malware and how Malwarebytes can mitigate that. Over to you, Brett.
Thanks very much, Paul. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And thanks, Carl, for kicking things off. Just like the presentation here. Hopefully you guys can see that.
Hearing you loud and clear.
Excellent. Okay, so Malwarebytes, obviously we're an endpoint security vendor. I want to kick off the presentation by going through a little bit of local data for you guys. So this particular data is pulled from the telemetry we collect from our remediation efforts that we do in the field. So Malwarebytes essentially has about 500,000 people a day download our free remediation tool. Those particular people believe they have a level of infection on their machine, so they download the tool, run it locally on their machine in order to remediate any malware that they may have present. So what we're seeing today is since January 1, 2017, Malwarebytes essentially has remediated and detected 2,482,512 pieces of malware in the New Zealand region. The components of that which exist, which are ransomware derived, there's about 1,600 that we've seen are active ransomware remediations. Now this obviously is ransomware we've seen hit the machine but not detonate, or detonate but be blocked by our anti-ransomware component. These aren't machines that have been infected with ransomware, because once that's occurred, then you need to go and speak to Carl because you need to fix that problem a different way. So these are detections and remediations or prevention efforts that we've seen from a ransomware perspective, specifically for New Zealand. And if we break down the top ransomware variants for New Zealand, we see the top 10. Ransomware Cerber continues to be throughout the entire Asia-Pac region specifically, and a very strong player. Now this is April versus May, so we've seen a 386% increase in server activity within New Zealand specifically during the month of May over last month. Things like Locky have picked up a little bit. CryptoLocker again is re-emerging. A lot of the other stuff's on a downturn, but those particular developers tend to come out with sporadic large deployments and then go away very, very quickly. Interestingly enough, we haven't seen any of the new stuff that we've seen over the weekend. This data is active as of accurate as of an hour ago, so we haven't actually seen. No one's ran the Malwarebytes remediation tool or running our premium software in an environment where we've seen the WannaCrypto or WannaCry attack occur locally in New Zealand specifically. So the solution from Malwarebytes specifically around protecting not just against ransomware but malware as a whole, but I will focus primarily on ransomware. So Malwarebytes focuses specifically on zero-day threats. So we're looking at the new and emerging threats that we see in the market today, things like WannaCrypto, which came out over the weekend. Malwarebytes already prevented that before it was actually even created, based on the way we do things with behavior analysis, heuristics, etc. So we use proactive and generic exploit mitigation technology, so the pre-execution components of malware, how that malware is delivered to the machine or how it's delivered to the actual endpoint. So 80% of all malware is delivered via exploit kits. So understanding those exploit techniques and blocking the known exploit techniques as they attempt to occur on the machine is a great way of blocking malware before it even gets to the machine. A sophisticated linking engine, and this is really important when we come to remediation. So remediation is important to do thoroughly. Ultimately, traditional remediation in the antivirus world exists when a particular file is quarantined, and typically it's one file, it's an executable, a DLL, or an MSI, and that particular executable, etc., is removed from the machine or deleted. What doesn't get deleted in a particular case are the associated files with that malware. So things like registry keys, temp files, different folders and locations that may have been spawned by that piece of malware in order to re-emerge at a later date, or if AV does remove it, to respawn and essentially reinfect the machine. The linking engine by Malwarebytes doesn't just associate itself with the executable, the primary file, but everything that was touched by that piece of malware. So every registry key, DLL, etc., in order to completely remove the infection from the machine and not allow a re-emergence. And obviously it's an aggressive detection technique platform. We don't just remove it, we prevent them by looking at those exploit techniques and behavioral things which exist within malware and ransomware specifically. So there's two ways to secure your endpoints. We've spoken about remediation already, but I want to touch on prevention very quickly. So today's endpoint protection looks a bit like this. So we have traditional anti-malware or anti-AV software that stops a large bulk of the known malware that's come out. Anything that's unknown essentially sails straight through because there are no signatures to block against the unknown. What we're seeing customers do is attempt to bolster their antivirus solution with a next generation offering, such as something like machine learning or even exploit prevention, that kind of stuff. And these dramatically increase your ability to detect and prevent the attacks. But again, some stuff still does get through. And this is mainly because of sophisticated malware, the fact that it can be polymorphic, and the fact that some machine learning exercises don't pick up everything, and same as some malware doesn't leverage exploit keys to get on the machine. If you're passing through an exploit detection mechanism and the anti-malware detection doesn't have signatures based for that particular piece of malware, it's going to sail straight through both. What Malwarebytes envisioned to do was to essentially introduce multiple layers. So in this particular case, 7 layers of prevention and protection. So we go all the way from signature-based detection, which are in blue, so your web-based protection, and also payload analysis. So the payload analysis is what we've been doing for quite a long time. It's all about rules, which one rule equals many families of malware. And that particular rule set blocks the majority of known or all the known malware that we've seen to date. And of course, web protection is essentially a static list of bad known IP addresses that malware uses to reach out to download secondary payloads or connect back to command and control servers, etc. Everything else in the orange is behavioral based to a degree. So application hardening. So this particular component is essentially the first active layer of prevention. It's going to look for things like when a script that is developed by an attacker sits on a web server which may have been compromised and tries to find out what version of Internet Explorer you're running. If it knows what version of Internet Explorer you're running, what build, it knows what vulnerabilities exist because it knows what updates you haven't performed, so it knows where to focus its exploit mitigation, exploit efforts in order to exploit the vulnerability on that particular application in order to deliver the threat. Then we move into exploit mitigation, etc. As we get in the line, we see the more behavioral analysis detections and application shift change detections, and also anomaly detections that we prevent against in the pre-execution stage of the attack. So this is all about delivery. So the first 6 layers you see, they're all about how that piece of malware gets to the machine. What we're here to talk about today primarily is the behavioral monitoring stuff in post-execution. So if all else fails and we don't see it delivered in the way it's delivered to the endpoint, and the file is executed, the anti-ransomware product from Malwarebytes essentially prevents the ransomware from encrypting multiple files or encrypting the entire file system based on behavioral monitoring exercises it performs against known ransomware behaviors. So multiple layers of defense leads to little infections getting through all the layers, but nothing's perfect, obviously. This is where backups and restores are extremely important. But ultimately, if we can prevent the majority of, we've got a much smaller attack surface to worry about. So I want to focus on the anti-ransomware stuff very, very quickly, and I want to show a couple of demonstration videos about ransomware detonation specifically, and also how anti-ransomware blocks those particular attacks. So anti-ransomware itself is it's a little different. It's not something anyone else has in the market today. Anti-ransomware is purpose-built to stop ransomware specifically. It's based on an indicators of compromise, or an indicator system, or a behavioral system. It monitors individual threads at a thread level on the machine, and essentially waits for behaviors which are known to be ransomware. It takes a tally of those particular behaviors, adds them up, and there's a certain indicator level which says, okay, this is a bad file, or it's indicated as ransomware, and essentially blocks the ongoing effort in the process going forward. So essentially this is monitoring the system for known bad ransomware behavior. Once it sees more than one, it stops that particular behavior. The tool then remediates the ransomware. The file that essentially was executed plus all the associated components gets removed from the machine. Now, this particular video here is a ransomware attack without the Malwarebytes anti-ransomware technology in place. So hopefully this comes through clearly enough. It's about 3 minutes, but I had some commentary to it, and I'll speed it up when we need to. Ultimately, we're just seeing here we've got a process explorer running, so we can see essentially what processes are running on the machine. We've got some real-world documents here. We've got a PowerPoint presentation, which is fairly old-school looking. We've got some text files. In this particular case, ADW cleaner log, which has been run. We've got some image files, so standard PNGs that you expect to see on a desktop machine ultimately. Nice red Audi. And you can see we've got more than that content on the machine. My documents is populated with documents and PDFs and all kinds of stuff. And they are all standard, as you can see, .pdf, .ppt, spreadsheets, .xls. And obviously we've got text files and RTF files as well. So it is a populated machine. It's not just junk data, and it's showing it in good state now where we can access files. Now we can see we've got Tesla.exe. This is right when TeslaCrypt came out initially. So it's a brand new threat, brand new piece of ransomware. Okay, so we see it launch. And obviously we have to give permission to it to access what it tries to access. Now ransomware being ransomware, it tries to access the volume shadow copy service and essentially gives you no ability to roll back. What we then see is, you can see there all the files are being changed to a .vvv extension, and they are now essentially encrypted. And what we also see is obviously the ability to see how to recover. So we get those prompts come up, we get images, text documents, and more than likely in most cases you get a Google page where you can translate HTML to other languages to make sure you can actually fulfill the ransom requirements, pay the money by Bitcoin, and essentially, hopefully, decrypt your files. So that's essentially the attack itself all the way through. I'll stop the video now, it doesn't show you much more than that. Move to the next slide. Now this is a ransomware attack with the Malwarebytes anti-ransomware technology in place. This is only the Malwarebytes anti-ransomware technology in place. This doesn't include any of that pre-execution prevention or known malware or ransomware protection. This is purely the behavioral analysis engine functioning on its own. So what we see here is we see anti-ransomware running. We see the same operating system previously, so real-world PowerPoint presentations, text files, images, etc. All accessible and readable, albeit different language, but accessible and readable. Now if we launch Tesla again, it's going to try and perform the same actions it did originally by attacking the volume shadow copy service and taking away the ability to roll back to a previous state. It's also going to try and perform it. We see anti-ransomware block the attack based on known ransomware behavior, and you can see that, I'm just going to pause very quickly. You can see the top file on the right-hand side there is 00091.pptx.vvv. So we did have one file encrypted based on the file was running, the ransomware was running in the background. Any ransomware picked it up before it could encrypt the entire file system, but we lost a single file. Now again, this is important. This is why it's important to have backups, and not just daily backups, but frequent backups throughout the day, so that you can recover the individual files that potentially could be lost when you're not running technology like Malwarebytes anti-ransomware. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the anti-ransomware conversation. I'll pass it back to Paul.
Thanks very much, Brett. Appreciate that presentation, and then nice and short and succinct. Is there any questions from the participants? If you have, please just submit them by chat, and Tyron will read them out to Brett or Carl. Sorry, I'm going to get to read them out. Has a question here from Ben. Has the anti-ransomware been integrated into normal Malwarebytes yet?
So it has for the consumer version, and you would have seen 3.1 released last week for consumer. As far as integration, so it's not currently part of the current console, but we are expecting a unified agent to come out with very, very shortly. We're talking months, not years, and we're talking towards the end of financial year. We should see a unified agent with a nice, cool cloud console we can leverage, which will all be a single package.
Thanks, Brett. And here from Stephen. So the Malwarebytes, does Malwarebytes work with virtualization systems and not require full client on the VM?
Right, so essentially what we've got is we've got a product which is suitable, and it's only in one form essentially. Currently it's obviously the 3 agents, anti-exploit, anti-malware, anti-ransomware, and they're all required in full, and it can function in a virtual environment, for example on virtual servers. There is the ability to function also on remote desktop servers and Citrix servers ultimately, but there are some discussions to be had around sizing because obviously these particular applications, a lot of them function in memory, so it's really important to have the right amount of resources available so that if you are spreading it across multiple virtual hosts within an environment, that there's enough memory to cover the requirements of the tool set.
Thanks, Brett. Is there any other questions from anyone? Anything for Carl at all? No? Okay, well, if there's no more questions, if you do think of anything, please, oh, hold on. Ben's just come in here with a question. How about a management console for Malwarebytes?
Yep, so currently we have a management console which comes with our business version. The current management console supports the anti-exploit, anti-malware management, push and pull of software, log collection, reports, etc. When the unified agent comes out, there will be a cloud-based console which manages the endpoint security product as a whole.
Great, thanks very much, Brett. All right, another one here. Hold on, a couple more coming in. Right, Stephen wants to know, management server training is provided by who?
From a Malwarebytes perspective?
Brett? Yeah, Malwarebytes.
Yep. So there will be some training available to customers of Malwarebytes. Ultimately, if you want training now, that would be me, and I'm in region pretty frequently, and I'm discussing with Paul a new timeline. So if you'd like some on-site training, please discuss with Paul and book some on my time. I'm happy to provide that for you.
Great. And also here from Joseph, what product is the anti-ransomware feature included in?
Malwarebytes Endpoint Security. So it's the MBES product.
Great. And for StorageCraft, from Ben, what sort of costs for cloud storage of backups?
So the StorageCraft Cloud Services is a purpose-built solution for disaster recovery. So the RRP on that's $88 per machine. Well, actually, that's AU dollar. Paul, you know what you guys do that for in RRP? Oh, anyway, that's okay. So it's $88 AUD RRP for the cloud services. That includes up to 1 terabyte. But what you've got to realize is that this is an all-inclusive disaster recovery solution. So that includes all the bandwidth, the CPU, the memory, everything to virtualize your infrastructure in the event of a failure, including us helping you migrate that back on-prem, whether we ship drives or you download it. So it's an end-to-end solution, very affordable, monthly subscription to that service. Sorry guys, it looks like Paul's just dropped out there, but thanks for coming along today. He has recorded the session, so if you want to get a copy of this, just reach out. And thanks, Brett, for presenting with me today.
Thanks, Carl. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
I hit this off.